What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Sports Now. As requested, we're going to get on a Tuesday, Friday schedule. Thank you, Adam, for that suggestion. I think it's important to know who's hurt, and like you said, if y'all don't check 4 or 5 times a day, you might miss some of these guys. I happen to check, so I'll tell you what I see. Totally pumped. The season is a couple weeks away, and March Madness starts tonight. So I guess it technically started yesterday, but the real tournament starts now, and I'm excited for the day. So let's get into the injuries that have been happening lately. All right, we can't start an injury talk without talking about Carlos Carrasco again. As he started getting, I guess, kind of better with his elbow, he started throwing like a bullpen session. No later did he full tear his hamstring, and they're projecting a 6 to 8 week return. And that's terrible news for anybody who already drafted. It's a tough one because he has to hit now too, so 6 to 8 weeks might be too short of a time. So he's got to be able to run at some point. It could potentially help him in the long run, resting his elbow, but for me, adding the elbow on top of a hamstring is pretty much a full-on avoid at this point. But there can be a little meat on the bones in your fantasy leagues in theory. But this is where you have to know your league. If you're in a league where you're going to have an auto drafter, then forget it. Just take Carrasco off your list right now. You're not going to get him. And that's fine. That's fine. Somebody's going to take him at the value that he probably was auto draft, and that's what they deserve for auto drafting. If you are in a league that is highly ingrained and highly knowledgeable what's going on, then it is possible to get a little bit of meat off the bone, a late flyer with Carrasco, and put him on the IL or the DL and pick up somebody who didn't get drafted. Could have a little meat on the bone, but 8 weeks, probably more like 10 weeks, because he's got to revamp and hope his elbow is okay. It's basically like a third of a fantasy season. We have 22 weeks, so that's a regular season. So that's like a third of the season is pretty much gone. So for me, it's pretty much a hard pass at this point. I'm going to let somebody else take the risk because it's just not worth it anymore, especially with the elbow situation. So similar with Ketel Marte. No sooner did we do the injury report a couple days ago where it looked like he had hit by a pitch in the foot and he had recovered and was more or less fine. There's no broken bones and he was good to go. Turns out the next game had tweaked his ankle, they're saying. So I have had a pretty devastating ankle injury. And so I'm hoping, obviously, that that's not the case. And it doesn't sound like that's the case. It sounds like it's mostly precautionary. But a guy who is kind of known for doing it all, requiring speed with an ankle injury, isn't really what you want to hear right now. They could kind of linger. Your body kind of compensates for it. I, right now, am basically saying that I think he's going to be fine. It sounds like ankle soreness. It does not sound like it was the size of a softball, kind of a thing. So it's worth noting, it's worth looking at, but it's probably not worth putting too much into it. I'm still in the Marte camp, and I think he's going to be okay. So last time we talked about Luis Robert, he had an abdominal issue. I talked about he's probably fine unless you find out it's an oblique. Which will put him out for a significant amount of time, and it would affect his swing for probably the remainder of the season. Looks like that's not the case. Looks like he's back in the lineup. Looks like he's playing again, or he's going to play very soon. So draft with confidence here. It's not an oblique. Whatever it was is gone, so we can feel confident and comfortable about that. So that is some bit of good news. Steven Strasberg is trending in the correct direction, which is good. He hurt his calf. We talked about that in the last episode. He's an injury risk guy already who's already injured going into the season. That's usually not a great combination for success. However, it looks like he's trending in the right direction. He's going to throw, like it says right here, 4 innings simulated game. And if he can do that, honestly, like it sounds like he's ready to do that, and it doesn't sound like there's any reason for him not to be able to do that. So I'm drafting with the confidence in him that I had prior to this calf injury, which isn't a ton that he'll stay healthy, but it's better than him with a calf injury. So for me, I'm feeling a little bit better about Steven Strasberg as well. He's trending in the right direction. And it sounds like the same could be said about Sonny Gray. Now, Sonny Gray, it does not sound like he's going to be ready for opening day. This kind of alludes to, oh, maybe he'll be able to get there. He's trending towards getting to his first outing. I don't see that happening. I don't know why they would rush him back and potentially lose him for a few weeks during the season rather than just let him take the time to heal and then come back strong and finish the season correctly. So for me, if I was a coach, a GM, manager, whatever, even him, I would probably push to miss the first couple of starts and come back and then be healthy throughout the season rather than have this linger. So I anticipate him having this injury linger into the season a little bit. I don't think I would drop him too far down the board, but I would drop him down the board because, like I said, 22 weeks, if 2 of them are automatically out, you're starting to take fractions out of your season, whereas a safer, healthier pick wouldn't do that necessarily. So I've dropped him about 10 spots on my board at least. I just am pitching, but we'll see what happens. It sounds like he's trending in the correct direction, which is good. So if you already had your draft and you see Sonny Gray, this is what you want to see. Back injuries are no fun. Framber Valdez, I didn't think I'd be talking about at all. So he fractured his finger, and I'm actually not sure which finger it was, but it was on his throwing hand, obviously. And essentially, the story goes is he fractured his finger, and they said you're going to need surgery, and you're going to be out for some large amount of time. And so it was like, oh, great. Well, early drafts probably didn't draft him. Well, it turns out he goes and gets a second opinion, and now they're saying, oh, wow, your finger is healing really well, and we don't think you should have surgery anymore. Well, if his healing finger continues to trend, he might only be out, say, maybe a month. They don't know. So they still don't have a real actual timeline for him. But as an absolute flyer at the end of the draft, on the off chance it's only a couple of weeks, you could fill in that. Like if you take him with your last spot, you could pick up another starting pitcher who would have been there anyway. And then if he does return, you can flip flop him. Or in a dynasty league or a keeper league that keeps a lot of people. I'm not saying Valdez is like a superstar, but in a dynasty, he might be somebody that you could get cheap who could go forward and help your team because it sounds like it is healing correctly and well, and surgery is no longer an option. If he had surgery, it sounds like he was out for the season, so that's not good. More bad news is Hunter Harvey. Sounds like he did get hit with an oblique issue. It was kind of an unknown what was going on with him. He's kind of hurt, kind of not, and sounds like it is an oblique. He's on the 60-day IL already, and that's hard to recover from, especially as a hitter. But pitching, I'm not as sure. But obviously, they're saying all-star break, so it's obviously a big problem for him. Who knows who's going to close for Baltimore at this point? I know Hunter Harvey was kind of the lead guy at the time. Not really the greatest option anyway, because I don't think Baltimore's going to win that many games, and it's not like Hunter Harvey is like a lights out kind of guy. But now the situation is a complete mess. So I would just avoid, you could, if you're in a super crazy deep league that doesn't charge you for transactions or you don't have a cap or something, then you could take a flyer and try to pick up one of these guys and hope that they're the closer. Sure. But if you're in a kind of a standard league, I'd probably more or less just avoid the situation. And it sucks. Hunter Harvey had a chance to elevate his career, and it's going to be stunted for a little while. I think this is the last one, and I'll check just to make sure. Trent Grisham had a hamstring problem. Those things linger. I don't know if any of you remember Carl Crawford. Always had these hamstring problems. It sounds like he's returning, and he's going to start playing soon. I'm confident that he'll be back. But it's something to keep an eye on. If you're drafting this weekend, I would just draft with confidence and hope for the best. I think a lot of people don't know who Trent Grisham is, and that plays to your advantage. So there's still a lot of meat on the bones there. So I would draft with confidence. It sounds like he's probably going to be ready. They're saying optimistic. I'm optimistic as well, but it is a hamstring, and he could be out for a few games after the season starts. So, and it could linger. It is possible. So if you like somebody like Trent Grisham around his spot that you're drafting, you might want to look somewhere else. So it's something to keep in mind here as we go into our drafts. I did have one more. That's right. Adrian Hauser, he has this weird right thumb problem. At first, they weren't sure if it was broken. It turns out they're calling it a cramp, and it's just weird. I don't know how I feel about this one, honestly. Like, I would probably just avoid it for now because I don't think that Hauser's like a game-changing kind of player. So I would probably just take somebody else, somebody who doesn't have this weird problem. Is he going to end up on the DL? Maybe. It could happen, and I would just rather play it safe with somebody else around his spot. But it's something to note that he's got this weird thumb. It sounds like he's had it before. A very strange injury. And I think, yep, that's the list, guys. So we'll see you next Tuesday on the injury report. Draft with confidence. Probably avoid Carrasco. Everyone else is probably going to be all right, but hard to say. And we'll keep going with this. Appreciate you guys.